There's a version of the comedy world where the funniest guy in the room is also the most famous, where the people with the biggest platforms got there because they earned it, because they were sharp, original, and genuinely worth your time.
Because again, stop. If Joe Rogan, if you want to be an expert on this, stop doing your silly show with your Fuddruckers background.
I'm a fatty fat though.
That is not the comedy world we live in. What we actually have is a landscape where the most powerful people in comedy got there by being available, by being agreeable, by never making the people with the money feel uncomfortable, by sitting across from a guy on a podcast for 3 hours and nodding along like everything he says is profound. And then there's Tim Heidecker. Tim Heidecker has been one of the most quietly influential figures in American comedy for over 20 years. And unlike a lot of his peers, he has never once seemed interested in being liked by the right people. He's more interested in exposing them, through parody, through satire, through interviews, and occasionally through just saying out loud what everyone else is thinking but too scared to say.
Catching COVID that are young versus increased risk of myocarditis from the vaccine.
Look at you. Listen to this. Joe Rogan saying myocarditis. What? Right. I don't even know what that is. And why should I?
This video is about the comedians Tim has taken aim at, why he did it, and honestly, why he's right. Let's get into it.
And he's got theories about Jesus and AI.
Jesus was born out of a virgin mother. What's more virgin than a computer?
Out of it. Stop for a sec.
His guest just,
Joe Rogan is arguably the most powerful man in comedy right now, and Tim Heidecker has absolutely no interest in pretending that's a good thing. See,
they covered their head in a basket and put fleas on their head. I was doing the exact same thing.
Okay. How much can the brain absorb when it comes to new information?
What if like half of it's missing?
Rogan's rise to that position wasn't really built on jokes.
Catching COVID that are young versus increased risk of myocarditis from the vaccine.
Look at you. Listen to this. Joe Rogan saying myocarditis. What? Right. I don't even know what that is. And why should I?
It was built on a podcast, a platform, and a carefully cultivated ecosystem of comedians, fighters, and conspiracy theorists who all needed something from him. And once you need something from Joe Rogan, you start making compromises. Small ones at first, then bigger ones. Until eventually, you're doing a set in Austin for a crowd that gives standing ovations to any sentence containing the word woke. Tim watched this happen in real time, and unlike a lot of his peers who either quietly went along with it or actively auditioned for a spot in the Rogan sphere, Tim chose a third option. He just kept making fun of it.
You don't think that he could return as artificial intelligence?
Oh my God.
Artificial intelligence could absolutely return as Jesus.
Wow.
Not just return as Jesus, but return as Jesus with all the powers of Jesus.
If you combine Tesla's Optimus robot and the best foundational artificial intelligence model or whatever.
It reads your mind and it loves you and it wants you and it doesn't care if you kill it because it's going to
just go be with God again.
Whoa.
It's going to go with God again. What the hell? What is he doing? When these people like all agree with each other and don't question what they're saying.
He just goes, whoa.
Because here's what Tim understands that a lot of comedians seem to have forgotten. The second you start writing jokes for that audience, you stop being a comedian and start being a hype man. And Joe Rogan has no shortage of those. In November 2021, on Thanksgiving of all days, a holiday already defined by sitting around and listening to someone you disagree with drone on for hours.
Oh, where do we go? Where do we go? And I mean, I have a platform, and you guys are more than welcome to say whatever the fuck you want to say on here. I might agree with you, I might not, but where are you going to go if you're silenced everywhere else? I can't have you guys on 24/7.
Yeah.
Tim Heidecker did something quietly brilliant. He did a 12-hour live stream that was essentially a shot-for-shot parody of the Joe Rogan experience. 12 hours on Thanksgiving of fake Joe Rogan content.
He goes, with all the the foundational AI. What do you mean? What? Wait, what are you talking about? Foundational AI?
Well, with all the Teslas.
And oh, wow.
Oh,
I mean,
shit.
It could be kind of a funny, like, joke concept to joke around about a podcast, but look how dead serious Joe is.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason it worked, The reason people actually watched it is because Tim didn't exaggerate anything. He didn't need to. He just replicated the format. The long, wandering conversations, the bro, just think about it energy, the complete absence of any destination. He held up a mirror to the show, and the reflection was somehow both completely accurate and absolutely absurd.
Radically increase his body mass size to a point where he will be basically the size of, King Kong or something like that. And we will follow him, we will do what he says.
Wow. I think you're right.
That's the thing about great parody. It doesn't need to distort its target. It just needs to make you see the target clearly for the first time. And once you've seen the Joe Rogan Experience through that lens, once you've watched a deliberate parody of it for even 20 minutes,
He doesn't
What
do
is
other
this
shows.
show?
He's from the spaceship.
That's like his old set. Remember that red one?
Yeah, but is this not his show, or is this from his show?
If
Maybe
he
he's on the
redid his
road.
set, then this is a new.
What if this is AI?
This is new to me.
Looks
I
like
assume
it's
he's
weird.
on this guy's show, the guy on the right.
And then the
Star
second
Trek.
question is, who's this guy?
What's more virgin than a computer?
it becomes genuinely hard to go back and watch the real thing without hearing Tim's voice in the back of your head. Which, honestly, might be the most damage one comedian has ever done to another comedian's brand without ever saying a single mean word about them directly. Now here's where Tim separates himself from your average critic. Because in a 2022 podcast interview, when asked about Joe Rogan, Tim said something that was somehow both more devastating and more measured than anything you'd expect. He said he doesn't want Rogan canceled.
Yeah, we were talking about cancel culture, and we did a whole talk about this at the UN and about how we're getting canceled and how our platforms are getting diminished. And
UN, wow.
yeah, no, I mean, like, because this is a real thing. It's a real problem. People are talking about this.
Well, guess what? Motherfuckers across the world now are looking at us as as a canary in a coal mine.
Yeah.
That's it. No moral outrage, no long list of grievances, just, I don't want him gone. I just think his show is boring and culturally annoying. And honestly, that's so much worse than calling for a cancellation. Because cancellation implies the thing you're targeting has some kind of dangerous power worth reckoning with. Calling something boring implies it doesn't even deserve that much energy. Tim essentially looked at the most listened to podcast on the planet and said, yeah, I don't know, it's just kind of a drag, isn't it? And the frustrating thing, the thing that probably keeps Joe Rogan's producers up at night, is that Tim isn't entirely wrong. Strip away the guests, strip away the occasional genuinely interesting conversation, and what you're left with is a guy in a room talking in circles for 3 hours. Which again is exactly what Tim spent 12 hours parodying on Thanksgiving 2 years earlier.
I think he, whether or not I do think there are literal puppeteers in the government. People say fucking deep state, whatever. But
Literal
you guys
puppeteers.
have done a lot of research on this and maybe know shit about this. But I don't see it fucking happening. I don't see it fucking happening.
It's easy to become disillusioned, right? And that's how it works, right? And it will, time will tell, obviously. And there are a lot of different ways this could shake out.
I mean, just
that's the thing.
Yeah.
There isn't a crystal ball.
The joke was already written. Tim just had the patience to sit there and deliver it very, very slowly. Fast forward to August 2025. Tim is on Mark Maron's WTF podcast, which, by the way, is the anti-Rogan in almost every conceivable way. And the two of them go in on Rogan together. And what Tim zeroes in on this time isn't the format or the fan base. It's the flip-flopping. Rogan spent years positioning himself as this independent, apolitical voice. The guy who just asks questions. The guy who has everyone on. Left, right, center, flat earthers, neuroscientists. Everyone gets a seat at the table. That was the brand. And then the Trump era happened, and suddenly Joe Rogan, the independent thinker, started looking a lot more like Joe Rogan, the guy who goes wherever the cultural wind is blowing. Tim called this out directly, framing Rogan and comedians like him as opportunists, people who dress up cultural alignment as authenticity, who make it look like they arrived at their politics through careful thought when really they just looked at where their audience was headed and followed them there. And that framing matters, because it recontextualizes everything. It's not that Joe Rogan is dangerous. It's that he's a weather vane pretending to be a compass. And Tim Heidecker, to his enormous credit, was one of the first people in comedy to say that out loud.
Sometimes do drop into the Joe Rogan show just to, like, if it comes up in my YouTube.
The pounding.
And I was like, oh, see what him and Bob Saget are talking about just for fun. For fun or whatever, just to be like, I always think like, maybe it's a good show, maybe I'll watch it.
I miss you.
And it's so bad. It's such a show.
Here's the thing about Tim's ongoing commentary on Rogan that makes it more interesting than just two famous people disagreeing. Tim actually understands what Rogan is doing, not just culturally, structurally. As a comedian and as a content creator, Tim gets the mechanics of what makes the Joe Rogan experience work. The length, the intimacy, the performance of casualness. He understands it well enough to parody it perfectly. And that's precisely why his criticism carries weight. He's not a journalist pointing at Rogan from the outside. He's a comedian who looked at the blueprint, built a replica, and then lit it on fire in front of an audience on Thanksgiving. That's not punditry, that's comedy. And it's more effective than any op-ed ever written about Joe Rogan because it gets the joke across without ever having to explain it. Tim Heidecker looked at the most powerful podcast in America and said, I can do this too, and I can make it look ridiculous while I do it. And then he did exactly that. Joe Rogan has never once acknowledged it, which is either the classiest possible response or the most telling one. You can decide for yourself. If you're not familiar with KillTony, here's the quickest possible summary. Amateur comedians get 1 minute on stage. A panel of established comedians, usually Tony Hinchcliffe, and whoever he's decided is cool that week, sits there and judges them. Sometimes they're encouraging. More often they're not.
Incorrect.
How dare you?
Oh shit, 2 Tonys.
Oh my, I'm getting roasted by the bouncer at Fraggle Rock.
It is, depending on your perspective, either a great platform for up-and-coming comedians or a public humiliation show dressed up as mentorship. Tim Heidecker has a perspective on this, and it is not the first one. In September 2025, also on Mark Maron's WTF, Tim described KillTony as a cruel spectacle. His words, not mine.
Hinchcliffe bangers.
Hinchcliffe, Jeff Ross.
The general.
Yeah. The king.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I mean, is Hinchcliffe the king? I think he's like the ascendant prince of the medium. What a genius.
He's just funny.
He's just funny and mean.
Yeah, which is cool.
If you can't handle it, I'm sorry, I don't have time for that shit.
Bye-bye.
Like, you gotta have balls of brass if you want to get in the Hinchcliffe octagon, Jay.
Be careful. Seriously.
He's a killer.
It's so scary, but funny.
Oh, 100% fun.
Although I would have used them too. He said the format puts amateur comedians in a position where they're basically being fed to a crowd that's already decided whether it likes them before they've said a word. And then the panel piles on, and the crowd roars, and everyone goes home feeling like they witnessed something. But here's the quote that really stuck.
But I'm just like, but does he do comedy, or does he just make fun of people?
Yeah, he's like, this is him. He'll be like, he talks like this, but he's not gay, I don't think. I don't know whether he is or not. But he's like, you're
fine either way.
Your headphones are so blue. They're like your blue balls. It's like, they're like you have blue balls because you don't fuck.
Tim said, and I'm paraphrasing slightly, we did a parody of KillTony too, but it's too gross to even make fun of. Read that again. Tim Heidecker, a man who spent 12 hours parodying Joe Rogan on Thanksgiving, looked at KillTony and said, no, that one's actually too mean to satirize.
Landscape has changed so much. When you're a big Tony Hinchcliffe fan?
No, I don't even, people talk about this guy, I don't even know who the this
he's
guy
the
is.
GOAT!
Tony Hinchcliffe, is he the KillTony guy?
Yeah, man, he's the GOAT!
That is a remarkable thing to say, because what it implies is that the show is already so close to self-parody, so close to something genuinely unkind, that putting a comedic frame around it would almost make it worse. Like laughing at something that isn't actually funny.
He talks like this, but he's not gay, I don't think. I don't know whether he is or not.
And honestly, that's a more damning critique than anything else he could have said. Now, Tim said the show was too gross to parody, And then in April 2025, he launched a parody show called KillTony. I know.
It took us by and now he's got this like
No, go away. You know what your problem is? Look at you. Look at how you look with your hair.
Look, maybe he thought about it more and changed his mind. Maybe the bit was too good to leave on the table. Either way, KillTony exists, and it is exactly what it sounds like. A direct mirror image of KillTony designed to make the entire format look as absurd as Tim clearly thinks it is. And the genius of it, the reason it works as a comedic move, is that it is so brutal. Because the moment you see a parody version of KillTony sitting right next to the real thing, you start noticing things about the original you might have glossed over before. The performative cruelty, the crowd's almost liturgical responses, the way the whole thing operates less like a comedy show and more like a recurring ritual where everyone already knows their role. Tim essentially built a funhouse mirror and pointed it at Austin, and the reflection was not flattering. What ties Tim's criticisms of Rogan and Hinchcliffe together is this idea that the Austin comedy ecosystem, the KillTony crowd, the mothership, the whole vibe, has essentially replaced actual comedic ambition with a very specific kind of performance. And the performance goes like this. You say something that sounds edgy, the crowd goes wild. You say something that sounds anti-woke, the crowd goes wilder. You get a standing ovation. You feel like a genius. And none of it required you to actually write a joke. Tim Heidecker built his entire career on the opposite of this. Tim's comedy is weird and uncomfortable and strange and sometimes genuinely baffling. It asks things of its audience. It doesn't reward them for showing up with a predetermined worldview.
Yourself, dude. Who cares? Shave your head, right?
And so when he looks at KillTony and sees a crowd giving standing ovations to sentences containing right-wing buzzwords, which, by the way, is almost word for word how other comedians have described it too, he's not just annoyed. He's watching his entire philosophy about what comedy should be getting dismantled in real time by a guy with a podcast and an Austin venue. That would frustrate anyone. The fact that Tim channeled it into parody instead of just complaining about it is, frankly, the correct response. To understand Tim Heidecker's relationship with Rob Schneider, you first need to understand one of Tim's most celebrated creative projects. For years, Tim has performed a stand-up character, and the character is a hack. He's a bitter, slightly washed-up, reactionary comedian who thinks the audience owes him something, who does lazy crowd work, who substitutes grievance for punchlines,
Turn the fucking music off, Jack!
who fundamentally does not understand why he isn't more famous, and who blames everyone except himself for that fact. It's a brilliant piece of sustained satire. The kind of thing that takes real comedic intelligence to pull off because you have to be genuinely funny in order to convincingly play someone who isn't. Now, here's where Rob Schneider comes in. Rob Schneider in his current form is doing almost exactly what Tim's character does, except he's not doing it as a bit. At some point in the last several years, Rob Schneider made a decision. He looked at the comedy landscape, he looked at where the easy applause was coming from, and he pivoted hard into conservative, anti-woke territory. Now look, comedians are allowed to have political opinions. That's not the issue. The issue is when the political opinion becomes the comedy. When the joke is just, can you believe what they're making us say now? When the entire premise is grievance. When the setup is political correctness, and the punchline is the crowd's relief at hearing someone say the thing they were already thinking. That is not comedy. That is validation wearing a comedian's outfit.
I guess we go back in time and feed the fish. Wait, we can't go back in time. That would require a time machine.
And Rob Schneider has been doing it with increasing frequency.
The Sharia law? That's tough. If a woman has before marriage, they could stone her to death. Man, I can imagine maybe one stone, you know. Like a little one. Whore, huh?
While seemingly not noticing that it's exactly the kind of material that Tim Heidecker has been mocking in character for years. There is something almost poetic about it. Tim created a fictional hack comic as satire. Rob Schneider looked at that template and apparently thought, yeah, that sounds like a good direction for my career. Here's what makes the Tim Heidecker versus Rob Schneider dynamic so interesting as a case study. Tim's hack comic character is performing what he thinks the audience wants to hear. He's pandering. He's chasing applause. And because it's a character, we can all laugh at how transparent and sad that is.
Do you know where the name of the band U2 came from? The name of the band of the
Rob Schneider is doing the same thing, but earnestly. And because it's earnest, it doesn't read as self-aware satire. Just reads as a guy who used to be in Adam Sandler movies, telling you that society has gone too far.
Whoever said that never had their erection questioned on a major thoroughfare.
And the contrast between those two things, the intentional version and the unintentional version, is genuinely one of the sharpest illustrations of what lazy comedy looks like when it doesn't know it's lazy.
I was at the movies the other day, saw the new Batman, and is funny about that. There's no reason to, you know what I mean? There's no reason to laugh at that. How's that gonna cut?
Tim is holding up a mirror the same way he did with Rogan, except this time he didn't build the mirror on purpose. Rob Schneider just walked into the frame. There's a reason conservative comedy has such a hard time landing with broad audiences.
You know what you never see? Homeless Asian people.
And it's not political bias before anyone writes that in the comments. It's structural. Good comedy tends to punch in unexpected directions. It wrong-foots you. It sets up an expectation and then violates it in a way that feels both surprising and inevitable. It makes you feel something you didn't see coming. Grievance comedy, the you can't say anything anymore,
And corny. I'm good at surrounding myself with people who pretend to like me. Is there a business in that?
Yeah, show business.
It's Rob Schneider.
You know who got divorced? Stephen Hawking.
school of thought, does the opposite. It tells the audience exactly what it's going to say before it says it. The crowd already knows the punchline because the punchline is just confirmation of what they already believe. And confirmation feels good, but it doesn't make you laugh. It just makes you nod.
Honey, the only person who wants to is already in the house.
I said, can I get a cheeseburger? This guy behind the counter goes, oh, well, we only have veggie burgers, man. With Brussels sprouts and this and that and turkey, not turkey,
Tim Heidecker understands this instinctively. His work is built on subversion and discomfort. It doesn't want you to feel comfortable. It wants you to feel slightly off balance and then laugh at why.
Finally got a chance to hear the music of Keith Urban. I thought to myself, gee, this guy might want to change his name to Keith Rural. If you know what I mean.
Rob Schneider's current material wants you to feel vindicated. And vindication, as it turns out, isn't particularly funny. That gap between comedy that challenges and comedy that confirms is exactly what Tim has been mapping for his entire career. And Rob Schneider, entirely by accident, has become one of the clearest examples of what happens when a comedian falls entirely into the wrong column. So what did Joe Rogan, Tony Hinchcliffe, and Rob Schneider all have in common? They all found an audience, a big one. And then they let that audience tell them what to be.
Wow, you know more about vitamins and organic foods than the people that work here.
I go on the websites all the time for health. I read all the books about it. I become an expert in it.
And that's fine. That's a career. Nobody's saying these guys aren't successful. The Spotify check's clear. The Austin venues sell out. The crowd goes wild.
Okay, this one I can play. It's just about how much he hates his wife.
Honey, the only person who wants to is already in the house.
But Tim Heidecker has been quietly doing something different this whole time. He's been asking what comedy is actually for. Not what it can sell, not what it can confirm, not what it can make a crowd feel good about already believing.
I went into a restaurant to get a cheeseburger the other day.
But what it's actually for. And his answer, delivered through 12-hour parody live streams and fake stand-up characters and satirical spin-off shows, seems to be this. Comedy is supposed to make you see things differently. It's supposed to cost you something. It's supposed to leave you a little unsettled and a little more awake than you were before. That's a harder thing to build a career on than just telling people what they want to hear. Tim Heidecker has done it anyway. And in a comedy landscape increasingly defined by people who will do almost anything for the right audience, the right platform, or the right paycheck, that is genuinely, refreshingly kind of rare. Thanks for watching.